The rain had just stopped when Detective Claire Morrison pulled up to the quiet suburban street of Willow Creek. It was the kind of neighborhood where lawns were trimmed, mailboxes polished, and neighbors waved at each other during morning walks. A picture-perfect slice of America, but tonight, crime scene tape fluttered under the dim glow of streetlights, and the sound of sobbing carried through the chilly air. A woman had been murdered. The victim, later identified as Evelyn Carter, was a 34-year-old nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. She lived alone in a modest two-story house, the one now swarming with uniformed officers and forensic techs. Claire, a seasoned homicide detective with the Boston Police Department, stepped out of her car, the weight of years of cases pressing against her but never dulling her instincts. Inside the house, the atmosphere was thick with unease. Photographs of Evelyn smiled down from the walls, a young woman with auburn hair, always caught mid-laugh, but the body on the living room floor told a much darker story. Evelyn lay sprawled near the sofa, blood staining her blouse. The wound was precise. One stab to the heart, no signs of struggle. Looks like she knew her killer. Officer Ramirez muttered, jotting notes into his pad. Claire crouched beside the body. One stab wound, clean and deliberate. Not the mark of a thief, but someone with intent, someone with control. Her eyes scanned the room, a half-empty glass of red wine on the coffee table, a second glass beside it, untouched. A faint trace of cologne lingering in the air, one she couldn't place but definitely masculine. Who found her? Claire asked. Neighbor across the street. Said Evelyn's front door was open around 9 p.m. She went to check and saw the body. Claire stood, letting her eyes drift to the window. The rain had washed the streets clean, but something in her gut told her there were footprints outside waiting to be found. She glanced back at Evelyn's photographs. Who had she let into her home tonight? A lover, a friend, or someone pretending to be both? Detective Claire Morrison stood at the window, staring at the rain-soaked street. The quiet calm of Willow Creek was deceptive. Beneath it, secrets were brewing. She turned back to Officer Ramirez. Start canvassing the neighbors. I want to know who saw Evelyn last, and if anyone noticed visitors tonight. Ramirez nodded and stepped out. Claire took another look at the untouched glass of wine. Whoever had sat across from Evelyn had left before finishing a drink, and before calling for help. That was telling. Across the street, Mrs. Linda Parker, a middle-aged woman with keen eyes and a nervous smile, waited on her porch as officers questioned her. Claire crossed over. Detective, Linda began, clutching her shawl. I knew something was wrong. Evelyn never left her door open. At first, I thought maybe she was airing out the house, but when I peeked inside, she trailed off, shaking her head. Did you see anyone enter or leave her house today? Claire asked. Linda frowned. This afternoon, around 6, a man came by. Tall, dark jacket. Looked like he was in a hurry. They argued on the porch. I couldn't hear what it was about, but Evelyn seemed upset. A boyfriend? I don't think so. I've seen Evelyn with men before. Neighbors, co-workers. She was friendly, but this one... She slammed the door in his face. Back inside, Ramirez handed Claire a file. Pulled her background. Evelyn had a recent breakup. Guy's name is Daniel Price. Works in construction. Lives about 15 minutes from here. Claire raised an eyebrow. Ex-boyfriend is always suspect number 1. Ramirez smirked. I'll bring him in. Before Ramirez left, another officer approached. Detective, Evelyn's co-worker, just arrived at the scene. Says she came straight from the hospital when she heard. Claire stepped outside. A young woman in scrubs stood near the police line, her mascara running from tears. I'm Sophie Grant, she said between sobs. I worked with Evelyn at St. Mary's. We had the same shift today. What time did she leave the hospital? Claire asked. Around 5:30. She said she was going home to relax. We were supposed to grab dinner tomorrow. She didn't mention meeting anyone tonight. Claire studied her. Sophie's grief seemed genuine, but grief could also mask guilt. As Claire wrapped up her notes, an officer rushed over. Detective, we found footprints in the backyard. Size 11 boots, looks fresh. They lead to the alley behind the house. Claire's pulse quickened. Whoever killed Evelyn hadn't come through the front door. He'd slipped in the back, in the rain, careful but not careful enough. She looked once more at the untouched wine glass. 3 possibilities circled in her mind: a jealous ex-lover, a coworker with hidden motives, or someone else entirely, a stranger whose story hadn't yet surfaced. Pull phone records. She ordered, "I want to know who Evelyn called in her last hours." The pieces were scattered. Now came the hard part, putting them together before the killer struck again. Detective Claire Morrison sat across from Daniel Price in the small, dimly lit interrogation room at the precinct. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 30s, his knuckles scarred from years of construction work. His eyes darted nervously around the room, though he tried to maintain a tough exterior. "Daniel," Claire began, her voice calm but firm, "you dated Evelyn Carter for nearly a year. Neighbors saw you at her house earlier tonight, arguing. Want to tell me what that was about?" Daniel shifted in his chair. "Yeah, I went over. She still had some of my stuff, tools, a jacket. I just wanted them back. And the argument?" He clenched his jaw. She told me to leave her alone. Said she was seeing someone new. I got mad, sure, but I didn't hurt her." Claire leaned forward. "You expect me to believe you walked away calmly after she slammed the door in your face?" Daniel's hands balled into fists. "I didn't kill her. Look, I went straight to O'Malley's bar after that. Bartender knows me. Check the cameras. I was there until past 10. His alibi was possible, but was it airtight? Meanwhile, Ramirez entered with a printout. "Detective, we pulled Evelyn's phone records. Last call was at 7:42 p.m. Number registered to a private cell. Guess whose?" Claire scanned the page. "Daniel's name. Funny," she said, turning back to him. "You said you argued and left, yet she called you less than an hour before she died. What did she want?" Daniel swallowed hard. "She called me, yeah. Said she was scared. Someone had been following her after work. She thought I might know who." That caught Claire off guard. Following her, did she give a name? Daniel shook his head. "No. Just said a man in a dark hoodie. She didn't sound right. That's why I went over to make sure she was okay." Later that night, Claire revisited the crime scene. The forensic team had bagged Evelyn's phone. She scrolled through the messages. Among the usual chatter with coworkers and friends, one thread stood out. An unknown number, no saved contact. The messages were unsettling. "You don't know me, but I see you every day. You looked beautiful in blue today. Soon, we'll be together. You can't avoid me forever." The last text was sent just 2 hours before her death. "Tonight is the night." Claire's stomach tightened. This wasn't just a jealous ex or workplace drama. Evelyn had a stalker at 2 a.m. Claire sat in her office, piecing it together. Daniel had motive, but maybe not opportunity. Sophie, the coworker, seemed genuine, but what if she knew more than she let on? And now, a mystery stalker lurking in the shadows, leaving digital footprints but no face. Her phone buzzed. Ramirez again. "Detective, you'll want to see this. Security footage from the alley behind Evelyn's house. Caught a man in a hoodie around 8:15 p.m. sneaking toward her backyard." Claire closed her eyes for a second, then opened them with renewed determination. The case was no longer just about a murder. It was about a predator who had been watching, waiting, planning. And if he wasn't caught soon, Evelyn Carter might not be his only victim. The rain returned by morning, a steady drizzle that painted Boston in shades of gray. Detective Claire Morrison hadn't slept. She sat in her office, replaying the alley footage again and again, a hooded figure, tall, moving with purpose. The man had avoided the front of the house, slipping into Evelyn's backyard like a shadow. She froze the video. The resolution was poor, but there was one detail. On his left wrist, the faint glint of a bracelet or watch. Claire decided to re-interview Sophie Grant, Evelyn's co-worker. Sophie arrived at the precinct in the same scrubs she'd worn last night, eyes red from crying. "Sophie," Claire said gently, "I know this is hard, but I need you to be completely honest. Did Evelyn ever mention being followed?" Sophie hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she told me a few weeks ago someone was leaving notes on her car at the hospital. I told her to report it, but she laughed it off, said maybe it was a patient's family being weird. Did you ever see this person? No, but Evelyn was. Worried, she stopped walking to her car alone. Claire studied Sophie carefully. Her hands trembled as she spoke, but her story aligned with Daniel's claim. Evelyn had been stalked. Later that afternoon, forensic results arrived. Prints lifted from the wine glass didn't match Daniel, Sophie, or Evelyn. They belonged to someone not yet in the system, a John Doe, but there was another clue. The cologne trace Claire had noticed at the crime scene. Lab identified it as a rare brand. Santal Noir, expensive, niche. Not something a construction worker like Daniel would wear. At O'Malley's bar, the bartender confirmed Daniel's story. Security cameras showed him drinking alone, visibly upset, but nowhere near Evelyn's house during the murder. Claire crossed him off the primary list. He was hot, tempered, yes, but innocent of this crime. Back at the station, Ramirez entered with a fresh lead. Detective, we checked the unknown number that was texting Evelyn. It's a burner phone, but guess where the last ping was before it shut off. Claire leaned forward where, near St. Mary's Hospital, the same place Sophie and Evelyn worked, Claire's heart sank. Was the stalker closer than anyone realized? That night, Claire drove to Evelyn's house one more time. Something about the untouched wine glass bothered her. She imagined Evelyn pouring 2 drinks, one for herself, one for her guest. Whoever it was, she trusted him enough to let him in. Her phone buzzed. Ramirez again. Detective, you won't believe this. We ran facial recognition on hospital security tapes from last week. Guess who matches the hooded figure in the alley? Who? Claire asked, bracing herself. Dr. Michael Reed. Claire's eyes widened. Dr. Reed was a respected surgeon at St. Mary's, charming, well-liked, married with 2 kids. No one would suspect him. But as she recalled the expensive cologne, the watch glint, the calculated nature of the crime, everything clicked. Evelyn hadn't been killed by a jealous ex or a random stranger. She'd been killed by a man hiding in plain sight. Detective Claire Morrison sat in her unmarked car outside St. Mary's Hospital, rain streaking across the windshield. Through the glass doors, doctors and nurses hurried past, their white coats flashing like ghosts in the fluorescent light. Among them was Dr. Michael Reed. Hall, confident, the very image of respectability. No one looking at him would imagine he was a suspect in a brutal murder, but Claire's instincts told her otherwise. Claire intercepted him in the hospital parking lot. Dr. Reed, she said, flashing her badge. I need a few minutes of your time. He raised an eyebrow, a polite smile on his lips. Detective Morrison, isn't it? Of course. Anything I can help with. We're investigating the death of Evelyn Carter. For a fraction of a second, Reed's expression faltered. It was subtle, but Claire caught it. The flicker of recognition, the tightening of his jaw. She was one of our nurses. A tragedy, he said smoothly. What would you like to know? Claire leaned closer. Were you aware she filed no complaints about harassment, despite receiving threatening messages sent from near this hospital? Reed's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. Detective, hospitals are busy places. Patients, visitors, families. Anyone could have been behind those texts. Back at the precinct, Claire pulled Reed's records. On paper, he was spotless. Ivy League graduate, decorated surgeon, married for 15 years. But financial statements revealed something odd. Large cash withdrawals over the past 6 months. Thousands at a time. Blackmail, Ramirez suggested, or obsession. Claire muttered. They dug further. A nurse anonymously reported that Reed often lingered after hours, offering Evelyn rides home, bringing her coffee, paying her extra attention. Evelyn had brushed it off as friendliness, but to Reed, it may have been something more. Claire needed proof, so she devised a plan. With Ramirez's help, she arranged for Sophie Grant, the coworker who accidentally mentioned to Reed that police had found new evidence in Evelyn's case. The rumor spread quickly. That night, hospital security caught Reed returning to Evelyn's locker. He was rifling through her belongings, searching for something. Claire and Ramirez cornered him in the act. "You know, Doctor Reed," Claire said, her voice sharp. "Innocent men don't break into dead women's lockers." For the first time, Reed dropped the mask. His smile vanished. His eyes burned with something darker. Anger mixed with fear. "You don't understand," he hissed. "Evelyn and I, we were meant to be together. She wanted me. She just didn't realize it yet." Claire's heart pounded. His words confirmed it. Evelyn hadn't been just another nurse to him. She'd been an obsession. But before they could cuff him, Reed slipped past Ramirez and bolted into the parking garage. "Stop him," Ramirez shouted. Claire sprinted after him, her footsteps echoing off concrete. Reed was fast, fueled by desperation. He darted between cars, weaving like prey determined to escape. He reached his black sedan, fumbling for the keys. Claire drew her weapon. "Michael Reed, step away from the car." Reed froze, then slowly raised his hands. For a moment it seemed he'd surrender, but then his lips curled into a cold smile. "You think you've won, detective, but this isn't over." The parking garage was silent except for the hum of distant engines and the steady patter of rain dripping from the concrete ceiling. Detective Claire Morrison held her gun steady, sights locked on Doctor. "Michael Reed, don't make this harder than it has to be," she warned. "Step away from the car." Reed tilted his head, that unnerving smile still plastered on his face. "Evelyn was supposed to choose me. I gave her everything, attention, affection, protection, but she rejected me, like I was nothing." Claire's grip tightened. "So you killed her?" His eyes flashed. "I didn't want to. I just wanted her to see, to understand. But when she threatened to expose me, I had no choice. She left me no choice." The words echoed through the garage, each one dripping with delusion. Claire kept him talking, every second buying Ramirez time to circle behind. "You were at her house that night. She pressed. She poured you a drink. She trusted you." Reed's smile widened. "Yes, she let me in. She always let me in. But when I told her I'd be leaving my wife, that we could finally be together, she laughed. She said it was never real, that I was sick." His voice cracked, fury and heartbreak mingling. "So I showed her how real it was." Ramirez moved into position, but a loose pebble crunched beneath his boot. Reed's head snapped around. In a flash, he dove into his car, yanking something from the glove compartment. "A scalpel, gleaming sharp, surgical. Stay back," Reed roared, pressing the blade to his own throat. "If I go down, I'll do it on my terms." Claire lowered her weapon slightly, voice calm but firm. "Michael, think about your family, your children. Is this what you want them to remember?" For the first time, his confidence faltered. His hand shook. The mask of the charming surgeon, the respected man, cracked wide open to reveal the frightened predator beneath. Ramirez seized the moment. He lunged, knocking the scalpel from Reed's hand. The blade skittered across the floor, clattering under a car. Claire rushed forward, cuffs snapping around his wrists. Michael Reed collapsed against the hood of his car, breathing heavily. The fight had left him. "You'll never understand," he muttered. "She was mine." "No," Claire said coldly. "She was her own person, and now she'll have justice." Weeks later, the trial of Dr. Michael Reed captivated the nation. Headlines screamed, "Renowned surgeon exposed as killer." Witnesses testified about his obsession, the threatening texts, the expensive gifts he showered Evelyn with before she finally cut ties. The jury deliberated only 3 hours before returning with a guilty verdict: life in prison without parole. For Evelyn Carter's friends and family, it wasn't enough to bring her back, but it was closure. Detective Claire Morrison stood outside the courthouse as cameras flashed. She lit a cigarette, something she only did after the hardest cases. Another predator off the streets, another life lost too soon. The rain began to fall again, washing the city clean. Claire tilted her face to the sky and whispered quietly, "Rest now, Evelyn. He can't hurt anyone else." Thanks for watching.